So I saw Gladiator II, and I regret every moment of that experience. It's a very terrible, no good movie, and specifically in ways that offend me as someone who knows a little bit about the history. I do mean a little bit because there are real historians who know much more than I, but what were they thinking? Oh my God. Now, we'll also, talk a little bit about Gladiator one and why it gets away with some of the things it gets away with. But first, let me talk about something I actually liked, and that's in this scene. I recognize the melody right away. It's Mesomades, who was an actual musician from the 2nd century AD and whose piece could actually have been conceivably performed in this historical period right there in the palace. It's fantastic. It's the hymn to Nemesis. We have the actual sheet music preserved of this piece. That's how I recognize the melody. It's a real ancient piece of music that we have. It's a Nemesi ptero esebi uropa. But my absolute favorite part of the movie is when Hedonism Bot makes a cameo.
Common knowledge, when Commodus was killed, the boy disappeared.
Except perhaps you, Hedonism Bot.
Warline!
I apologize for nothing.
The other thing I liked about the movie is that it's not quite as this strange blue filter color that's over top of everything. I mean, that was kind of the mood, but, whatever. That was, it looks more like Rome now, except like Rome in a desert, because it doesn't feel like Rome does today for sure. Yes, Rome could have felt very much like a desert back in the early 3rd century. I suppose that's possible. But I do like the scale. Like the Colosseum and the first seemed way too big to me. In this one, though, it looks actually Colosseum-sized, more the appropriate size. However, the whole city of Rome was completely wrong. All of the arrangement of the buildings, that was true of the first Gladiator 2, something that really stands out and makes the first one historically look really stupid. I highly recommend the channel History in 3D. This guy just shows you what Rome looks like in minute detail. Please go check out his channel, enjoy it. That's what Rome really looked like. If only the people who made this movie had bothered to look at that channel and, knew something about Rome. If only the first Gladiator 2 had seen that. Now, the first Gladiator, of course, is a much better film, and we'll get to why. But first, I'm going to finish my more specific complaints about Gladiator 2. One of the problems is the 200 AD. It's like, what? But they're going to have one of these guys die, but they die 10 years after that. And then McCrinus dies in 217. So it's like everything in the film would cover 17 years? What? No. Also, Lucilla, like I mentioned in the other video, died years before this. Like, it's everything about this is wrong historically. And the problem that immediately comes to mind for anybody who knows a little bit about history is that why do you not just take actual historical events, which are so much more interesting than the nonsense that you guys in Hollywood are making up? It's really, why can't you just do something that's like an actual interesting story from history? Or if you want something original that has nothing to do with recorded historical events, you can have them there, kind of in the background. The Rome HBO series did a great job of intertwining the main characters as being participants in these great historical events, while allowing it to be plausible that they could be so involved in so many different important events, while, of course, not aging, but also while not leaving a record historically. Whereas was his name Acacia Flower, the Pascal character, that just, if you have a major general like that who gets killed in the arena, you could bet someone would have written about it and we'd know about it. So it's not plausible. Also, I am not an expert when it comes to stage fighting, but when the bad guy here doesn't succeed in stabbing Lucius, I don't know how he missed. I don't know. It just bothers me. Oh, nice. Oh, and look, Denzel has the same face I had the whole time I was watching this movie. But the thing that I could not believe my eyes was this. Well, first we have something really wonderful. We have Lucilla coming into, I guess it's her villa, her home, and there we see really beautiful recreations of the artwork. In fact, I'd say a lot of details not all of the costumes, but some details in the costumes, and especially the props. There are different people who work on these things, and some of them really knew their stuff, especially seeing those paintings on the wall, those frescoes. They looked beautiful. They looked just like they do in Pompeii. The colors, I didn't analyze them very closely, but even the font that's of the thing that's written there, all that was great. And then I saw that she was, of course, reciting out loud the English, I guess we'll call it a verse translation.
Gates of hell are open night and day.
Into rhyming translation of Virgil. It's from about Book 6, line 126, roughly, which it says basically it's easy to walk into hell, but getting out, that's the difficult part. And I was expecting, as I was looking at, oh, look, I could see the rustic capitals. It looks just like in Pompeii. And then I saw...
Smooth is the descent. Easy is the way.
It's written in English. Why? Why? She's reciting the English translation anyway. We could, when we watch historical films, or films that take place where English is not the language of the characters involved, but the actors are speaking in English, we suspend disbelief. That's all part of the theatrical experience. We can go through that. But when the prop, the prop doesn't need to be in English. It is just obscene. These are the lines from Virgil, starting at 126. Facilis descensus Averno, easy the descent to Avernus, meaning the underworld. Noctes atque dies patetatri noaditis. Through the nights and through the days, the door of Dis, meaning of Hades, of the underworld, it lies open. Sed revocare gradum superasque vadere dauras, hocobus hic labores. But to revoke the step, meaning going down, step down into Hades, and to evade that, to get out of there and get to the high aurae, the air, the breezes of the normal above world, hoc opus, that's the job. Hic labores, that's the work. That's the toil. So that's the original. That's what is actually being quoted. Why was that not the thing written on the wall? Why did it have to be in English? It's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. I felt the deepest sense of embarrassment seeing that. I wasn't really planning to see the movie, but I thought, what the heck? Let me see. How bad could it be? It's terrible. The worst thing about it, though, despite these historical things that are just completely wrong. The original had a lot wrong. I'd say this Gladiator 2 has 10 times as much historical inaccuracies with respect to Gladiator 1. I didn't measure that or anything. It just feels that way. But one of the reasons that historical inaccuracies really stand out is that when the story is terrible and there is no clear main character, you think it would be, by the way, I might say spoilers in this. Go see it if you want. It's on streaming now. The main character, the Lucius, who was a little boy, who, by the way, died in history died way before this, so whatever. Oh my gosh. So he, wait a minute. He has a slide where he says he's the Prince of Rome.
I am Lucius Verus Aurelius, the Prince of Rome.
So Prince, I get what they're saying. They're saying that he's a descendant of an emperor. Like an emperor would have children who are called princes, but that's not how it worked in ancient Rome. And the word prince comes from Latin princeps, used specifically first by Augustus, the first emperor, as we understand him. But he didn't call himself emperor. He called himself princeps civis, first citizen. That's where the word prince comes from. And when you have The Prince by Machiavelli, he's talking about the principe, the leader or ruler or king of a place. In later English usage, prince gets to be the term for a child, prince and princess, the children of a king, nobility, that kind of thing, but not necessarily the current ruler. That's a much later usage. I guess that's what they're going for here. But when you're talking about the Principate, it's called the Principate, this period of history, because of the principes, what we call emperors of Rome, and that's it's just so irritating, and it's so terrible. So my problem is that there's no main character. Lucius, we know they try to give us these little details. Yeah, he has a wife and he's killed. Now it's so distracting because why on earth would Rome be attacking Numidia? That's been a part of the Roman, your republic for centuries. It just doesn't make any sense. It's so dumb. So if you okay, try to set that aside. What is Lucius doing? Who is this guy? Well, he puts his hand in grain, which is, I guess, as a callback to the beginning of the first Gladiator. Boy, so many ugly callbacks to the first Gladiator. How many times did they do this? Quote from Marcus Aurelius, whisper, and vanished. Yes, I know. I saw the first one a whole lot of times because that was a good movie. What makes a good movie is good story, compelling characters, something that evolves in a way that is enjoyable. And none of that is in this movie. Denzel Washington is great. The first movie was pretty consistent with, British or Britishy Australian accents, a little bit of, other accents here and there, but it mostly consistent. Denzel Washington speaks in an American accent. I didn't mind. He was the only thing enjoyable in this movie. His lines are terrible. Like the stuff he says, I couldn't believe how badly written everything was, every line of dialogue. But Denzel Washington, being such a good actor, was the only actor not utterly wooden, not acting like the stereotype of Greek tragedy, and was actually behaving, at least delivering his lines like a person. And that made him enjoyable to watch, at least. Of course, problem with his being, killed. He was supposed to be emperor for a little while there, not 15 minutes. It's so stupid. By the way, his name is McCrinus, not McCrinus. Why is that? Because in Latin it's McCrinus, and the stress goes on the long E. Long E becomes I in English. McCrinus. That's his name. He called McCrinus if he really wanted to, but McCrinus. That's his name, not Macrinus. Oh my God. Stupid movie. Stupid, terrible movie. I'm so sorry I watched it. It makes me... See, the thing about these movies, when they're so badly done, one part of me says, well, at least if this gets people into enjoying or being interested in the history or wanting to study Latin or something like that, that is okay. That can make it worth it. It doesn't matter if it's dumb. But this makes me not want to study Latin or history. It just makes me so, and I have my lovely shirt that my fiance gave me. I love this. But it just, makes me so disillusioned with the whole point of it all, which is extreme. And I'm sure this emotion will fade just as the memory of this terrible movie will fade quickly for me. And the set design, so much work went into it. I do see a lot of nice things that do resound as something that looks like it could be historical. But then there's stuff like this. It's at night, right? Okay. Where is that light coming from? Why is that so well illuminated? Where is that light coming from? Why is it as bright as that? Where is that light coming from? Not even the torch is even lit. And it just takes me out of the film. Also, just because I feel like complaining. Council? Oh my God. Yeah, it's consul. That was the point, not council. How? It must have read council in the script, or was consul, and the autocorrect, or the artificial intelligence that wrote the script, made it into council instead of consul. And that's ridiculous. By the way, just because I'm in the mood right now, I want to complain about people complaining at me that I don't know how to say the word pronunciation. Now, there are two words that are similarly spelled but have a different sound, of course. One is the verb to pronounce, and that's OU, and in the way I pronounce English, it makes the diphthong ow, pronounce. And in the word pronunciation, it's just the letter U. Nun, just like a nun, like a Catholic nun, none. And when I say the word pronunciation, those are the prescribed ways to say those words in American English, and that's what I say. So many people, though, have said, and I guess they're just trying to troll me because I don't know what they're talking about, trying to say that I have said in videos in the past, pronunciation. Now, that is a solecism. That is an incorrect way to pronounce that word in standard English. I'm not going to go and prescribe only one way of saying things in English. Obviously, it's an association with the verb pronounce and just adding the suffix onto it. Those kinds of things have happened to give us many standard words, both in English and Greek and Latin and Italian. Those things happen all the time. My only guess is that because sometimes I talk way too fast in these videos and without very good diction, I acknowledge that, you might hear me say something like pronunciation. And if you wanted to, and if you also notice that when I and many other English speakers, when we have a nasal and coda position that is at the end of a syllable, it tends to diphthongize a little bit the preceding vowel. So it's not simply none, it's none, none, none. It gets to be more centralized. And that maybe sounds more like an E or oo sound because there's a diphthong. And if you hear a diphthong, you're just cued to recognize something closer to ow instead of what it is, which is simply And I'm guessing that's what it is. It reminds me a little bit of, I don't know how to do this well, but the Australian pronunciation of the word no, which is no, something like that, right? No. And I'm doing it badly probably, but it's this really, interesting phenomenon. The back vowel actually gets fronted but it's rounded. Really cool, beautiful stuff that's out there. And I assume that's what people are hearing. Okay, end of rant on that topic. I cannot remember being so frustrated and pissed off and bored to tears watching a film for the longest time. It was just terrible. Again, the problem is there was no main character. They tried to introduce us to Lucius Hano. It's a Berber name, not a Carthaginian. Okay, never mind. But there are just so many questions. Why is he good at fighting? Actually, he's kind of bad at fighting sometimes, but he ends up coming out on top. But he does know how to fight. Where did he learn that? What are his actual goals in the movie? We need to be able to identify with him, like him, and then want to see him reach his goals. So whether he's successful or not, Maximus was not successful, and we enjoyed watching him try. How does he go from the little kid to becoming this guy? Who is this person? Yeah, you're saying this guy is that kid, but that doesn't... Are you trying to tell us that that character, which is pretty minor in the original, like all of his experiences and personality, we're supposed to say, okay, that's all within this adult character, except he's had like 10, 20, it's supposed to be 16 years of life experience and has become this completely different person. Why is he so good at fighting? Has he been practicing? How is he the way he is? We're trying to explain him because, his wife gets killed, so taking that from the original as well. Like when we get introduced to Maximus in the beginning of Gladiator with really well executed beats and scenes, we know so much about this guy. We get the sense immediately from his imagining that he's home at his farm, which is also metaphorically supposed to look like Elysium, the Elysian fields, paradise, heaven. The part of the underworld that was where the good people get to go, and there's that in there. We imagine he's thinking that, but there's this kind of longing. Doesn't hurt that the music in the first one is so much better. But you really, how do you elevate this? Hans Zimmer did a good job by staying away from this thing because it's just not good. And we just realize who this is right away, who Maximus is. He cares about his troops. We see that right away. We see his courage, how he leads his men, and how they fight against these barbarians, these Germans, and all that. Anyway, so it goes, and that scene is powerful and one of the best parts of the movie, probably in the first one, but it really gets you, followed by beautiful dialogue between Marcus Aurelius and Maximus about what the meaning of Rome is. And the idea, of course, that Marcus Aurelius wanted to restore the Senate and all these things, I don't think there's any reason to believe that is historical, as far as I recall. I think it's just all made up. But it's all kind of nice, and it fits in with the theme and the mythology that they're building, because this is all a tragedy, because we know a little bit about history, who are watching this, that this isn't going to work. The empire is never restored to a republic. The Senate is never restored to full power, and the emperor never gives away that power willingly. The empire falls in the 5th century AD in the West, right? That's just how it went. So we have a sense of dramatic irony because we appreciate the fact that what Marcus Aurelius is talking about and the mission that Maximus is going to go on is ultimately not going to work. But what he wants, what Maximus wants, he wants to fight for his freedom, for Rome. He wants to kill Commodus. All these things, and Commodus was a much better villain. So you basically have this dichotomy between Maximus and Commodus, and that whole bunch of really interesting, usually really interesting, or at least nice side characters in the original. This one, Lucius isn't hardly the main character. It's more Denzel Washington, McCrinus, who is so much more interesting of a character in this movie than Lucius. Even the, what's his name, Acacia Flower. He was, at some point, he seemed to become the main character, practically. And then he dies. It's so odd. It's so odd. There's no main character. It's supposed to be Lucius, but we have no reason to really care about him. I think they're trying to use our memory of the first one to associate Lucius with Maximus and make us feel like, oh, this is Maximus again, when it just doesn't feel that way. And all it does is remind us of a much better movie with better execution and better writing. And that, in comparison to the end of this film, spoiler alert, Lucius wins. The Jeddah, however you want to say his name, Caracalla, are both dead, and so is McCrinus on, I guess, kind of the same day or same week. And Lucius wins. Yay! Except the next emperor is Elagabalus, who is like worse than Caracalla. So good job, Lucius. Good job at being an idiot and saying awfully delivered and awfully written speeches. I'm still in disbelief. The original Gladiator has so many historical inconsistencies. I'd say probably a lot less than this one. That's my impression. But the point in all this is that the original Gladiator did inspire a lot of people and added fuel to the fire that was already burning in me as a teenager was interested in history and language, to really like the whole Roman stuff, as it did a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of historical inaccuracies, but there are a lot in, say, a movie like Amadeus, which rightly won 8 Academy Awards, because you have the combination of amazing writing, excellent execution, the acting off the charts. And so, yes, some stuff that's not historical, that's just made up for the movie or the original stage play, naturally, it still works. By the way, for much more detailed analysis, see Metatron's videos on Gladiator 2. If this had been a good movie, which it is not an extraordinary waste of money and time for everyone involved, including and especially the audience, then you could look past a lot of these things. And I think that could be okay. Like in Rome, lots of historical inaccuracies in that TV show, but the spirit was right. In this, nothing is right. Anyway, that's how I felt about it, and I just had to complain about it. Thanks so much for watching and listening and subscribing. Warete. And don't get me started how badly they pronounce Y weekdies. That's fine. So Roma Victa, like whatever. Yeah. And they says Ve Victus is what Pedro says. Anyway.